Copywriting has always had the same classic mistakes, and it makes sense because it's a different type of thinking, it's a different type of writing than most people are used to. If you went to college, you are not writing a website in any of your writing classes, right? You're not writing marketing emails in any of your writing classes. And so, as we've been talking about AI a lot, the truth is AI didn't invent bad copy, but it does mask the problem behind bad copy. Because when things sound good, it's harder to know where the mistakes are. By the end of this episode, you'll know if it's copywriting is your problem or if actually your problem is a symptom of something else. So let's dive in. Okay, so there are 5 classic mistakes that I want to talk about, and these are mistakes that have been around since the dawn of copywriting that really hurt your conversions. So first one is not being clear on your ideal client. So this is something that comes before copywriting. This is the piece that comes with strategy and messaging, and it's really knowing who is on the other side of the screen writing these words. Because if it's too vague, then you're not calling in the right people, right? If you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. And so that's one foundational piece that needs to be clear. The second common copywriting mistake is talking about everything that's included in your offer, but not connecting the dots for your people. So instead of saying, hey, what's included is XYZ, really showing like, hey, XYZ actually helps you meet your goal, and this is how. And so that piece is also a messaging piece that comes before the copywriting. The third one is not having a clear point of view, right? So this is your spicy takes, this is your approach, this is how you talk about how you approach problems and why you approach them that way. This is your differentiator, and this is also, again, something that comes before the actual writing piece. So this is something that you want to work on in your messaging work, making sure that you don't sound like everyone else, right? Why do your clients choose you? Actually thinking about that. And once you know that, and you know you're very clear on your transformation, and you know exactly who you're talking to, having those clear pieces is going to make a much better website page or is going to make a much better email, but I wouldn't even start writing until you have at least those pieces in place. Number 4 is forgetting that you are the expert in the room. And so what I mean by this is the way that you talk to your colleagues, other people who do what you do, is going to be different than how you talk to your ideal clients. Your ideal clients are not in your industry. And so using a lot of industry terms is going to be off-putting. So that's one piece where you really want to think about, how do they talk about this problem? How are they talking about what they want? And replicate that language. Because using industry terms that are super jargon heavy is going to actually push people away, but using the words that they would use to describe themselves, that they would use to describe what's going on, that's going to pull them in closer because it's going to show that you understand what they're going through. And then the final is missing calls to action. This is a big one. You have to make the ask. I have to remind clients of this. You have to make the ask. You have to actually ask the people to opt in, ask the people for the sale. If you are super soft in asking all of the time, people are not going to buy. You have to ask them, and it can be uncomfortable, but it's also part of running a business. So those are the 5 classic mistakes, right? Not being clear on your ideal client, only talking about the deliverables, not having a clear point of view or approach, using industry terms, and then not making the ask. So how has AI really made all of these worse? One is it skips the whole process of messaging and strategy. So it skips straight to the emails, and that is probably the biggest mistake because it's exacerbated all of these mistakes a lot faster, because AI can put out an email that sounds really, really good pretty fast, but if you don't have that messaging and strategy piece already established, then what AI is going to give you is not going to be reflective of who you want to work with, how you're going to help them, and all of that. So even if you're using AI and you might be choosing to not use AI, there is a ton of pre-work that goes in before you get to the writing. The other thing is that the internet is now filled with AI content, right? And you have seen it now that it has become so popular, people scroll through it. Because when you think about the role of your marketing is to stop the scroll, is to get people's attention, to have them interact with your brand, right? And if you are posting content that is generic AI content and somebody else is posting generic AI content and somebody else is posting generic AI content, people are not going to stop the scroll for that because they already know it's generic AI content. It's becoming more and more easy to spot. And as it becomes easier to spot, people are being turned off by it. And maybe it's not even a conscious decision of like, hey, I don't want to read this because it's AI, but it could be something like, hey, I already read something like this earlier, so I'm just going to skip on over this. Generic copy is a huge piece of why AI is problematic. Sydney and I touched on this in the last episode. If you haven't listened to that one, go back and listen to it. This idea of AI makes you feel like you're being productive, but if you're being productive and not getting the results that you want, then it's actually a waste of your time, right? So if you're not getting the conversions that you want, if you're spitting out all of this content, you're trying to do more, but it's actually not leading to clients, it's actually not leading to conversions, then it's actually a waste of your time. And so really thinking about where does AI fit in your business and how can you as a business owner stand out to the right people? How do you capture their attention? And a lot of the times it's not going to be AI written content. Another piece of it too is AI, no matter which AI you're using, if it's Claude, if it's ChatGPT, they are yes man robots. They are going to tell you that your idea is great, right? I will be like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And they're like, that's a great idea. And then I'll be like, actually, I feel like that was a bad idea and I want to do this instead. And they're like, you're right, that was a bad idea. I want to do this instead. So it is just going to mirror what you said back to you because that's what it does, right? It predicts language. And so if you are putting the wrong strategy in, the wrong messaging in, even if it knows your voice and it sounds like you, but you don't have that positioning piece, that messaging piece, that strategy piece, you're not going to get good copy that's going to actually work for your business. So when you think about what is actually wrong, like is it the copywriting or is it the pieces that come before it? I would say 90% of the time it's the pieces that come before it and not the actual words. You know, there are things that you can do to improve the flow of your copy, right? You can edit it, you can rearrange it. But most of the time, it's not about the words so much as it is about the offer and the positioning. So how are you talking about this offer? How are you showing that you're an authority? How are you telling people about how you approach your work? And so there's two pieces, right, that really come before the copywriting. The first one is strategy. Where are you showing up and why are you showing up there? Does it actually make sense? Are you using someone else's business strategy because you think you should? Or are you using ChatGPT's strategy because it offered you a strategy? Or do you actually have a marketing system that makes sense for the type of business that you have, your capacity in this season, and that actually is going to convert your ideal client? If you only need to sell like 1 or 2 offers, you don't need thousands of people in your email list, right? So it's really thinking about what makes sense for my business and not am I stealing something from somebody else's business and trying to make it work for me. The second piece is your message. So this is really, you know your strategy, you know where you're going to show up. Your message is, are you talking to the right people about the right problem at the right time? So what are you actually saying and how are you positioning yourself and your offer as the right choice for this person? So not just like, hey, this is my done for you service, but how do you do it differently than somebody else? Why should they pick you over somebody else? And these two pieces are 90% of the work that comes before copywriting. Once you are clear on these two pieces, copywriting, writing that email, writing that website page, it's like the last leg, right? It is just putting words to all of these ideas that you already fleshed out. When you try to put words to it before you flesh out all of these other things, that is where writing and marketing gets really hard because you're trying to start from scratch every time. You're not really sure what the goal is behind something. Versus like when you start with strategy and message, you can really think about, hey, this is my goal. This is what I'm doing. Here is what I'm saying. Here's why I'm saying it. Here's who I'm saying it to. And then every time that you want to show up and send an email, you're thinking about, okay, where is this person right now? What do I have to say to them? Versus being like, what should I even talk about, right? You already know what you're going to talk about because you have already done the work beforehand. The other thing that I want to touch on is your brain. This is like the second grade teacher in me. Okay. Your brain is what makes you special, right? People hire you for your brain. A lot of my clients, right, they are consultants, they are service providers, they are coaches. They are not being hired for what they do. They are being hired for how they do it, how they approach the work, the relationships that they build with people. That is something that the robots cannot replace, right? They cannot replace your opinions. They cannot replace the frameworks that you've built over the years of working with clients. They cannot replace your client stories, lessons that you have learned. AI can write something really quick. It cannot see inside your brain. It cannot take your perspective. And so the more that you can incorporate your perspective, your experiences, your approach into the actual copy that you're writing, the less generic it's going to be and the better it's going to perform. So I have been noticing this in my business. I have had clients noticing this in their businesses, that when they sit down and actually write the copy and they have fun with it and they play with the words and they have done all of the foundational work beforehand, they have copy that actually converts a lot better than generic copy. Why? Because their audiences are not skipping over it, because it's capturing their attention, because it was written by a human. So if you are listening to this episode and you are like, wait, where do I start? How do I even do this? Then here is your solution. The 3-day No AI Copywriting Challenge. It is 3 days. It starts on March 31st. And the point isn't to be anti-AI. The point is to understand what thinking has to happen before the writing actually happens. Because that's what's going to help position you in the market. That's what's going to make you stand out to your ideal clients and not make you sound generic. So day 1 is all about strategy, what you're doing and why. Day 2 is about messaging. So what's the actual meaning behind the words? What are you actually saying? Day 3 is copywriting. Notice that this comes on day 3. This is where you actually execute it. After you have done the thinking behind it, then you can go ahead and execute it. So the link to sign up is in the show notes. It starts on March 31st, but you can sign up now, head into our Slack channel, introduce yourself, say hi, and I will see you there. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time.